Okay, so good afternoon from all of us here at Julian Campbell Foundation. I'm really excited because I have my friend Jasmine here, and I want her to really, speak with you about the realities of teaching because Jasmine is a lead consultant in for a site. She's a science teacher and lead consultant, so she shows other people how to teach. So Jasmine is really equipped and kind of like up to date with all of the strategies and techniques on what we're actually dealing with in the chalk phase. But before we go over to Jasmine, I just want to share with you what our youth mental health crisis looked like before the pandemic and since the pandemic. So if we look at a class of 30 15-year-olds, before the pandemic, out of those 30, 3 of them would have had a mental health condition like stress, anxiety, or depression. And now, since the pandemic, in the same class of 30, 5 young people would have a diagnosable mental health condition. When we look at self-harm before the pandemic, out of a class of 30 15-year-olds, 7 young people in the class would be self-harming. And when I say self-harming, I'm including things like not just cutting and slicing, but risky, unsafe sex, bulimia, and anorexia. And since the pandemic, that's gone up to 13. So nearly half of a class is suffering from some self-harm. Going on to bullying and relationships, before the pandemic, we had 9 young people out of a class of 30 15-year-olds having difficulty in their relationships with their peers or suffering from bullying, which has gone up to 12. And finally, bereavement, that's gone up as well. So young people are dealing with the bereavement of a parent, and also parents that are split up or divorced has gone up from 14 young people, which is almost half the class, to 18 young people that are dealing with a broken down relationship or kind of like complex family complex family ties. So this is what's now going on in our classrooms. And these are the statistics. And Jasmine, really want to know from you, what is it like in reality in these classrooms for you as a teacher and also as a lead practitioner in science?
Yeah, it's been very challenging. Students post-pandemic are finding it very difficult to concentrate in class. They get very distracted, low concentration span. They're too used to being on their phones because there's no phone policy as well. So kids can't like fidget with anything. So they find it very, very hard. And so therefore they struggle in core subjects like English, maths, and science because they're more difficult, more concepts to learn. And again, a lot of them switch off and kind of get withdrawn and then decide not to participate in lessons because of how difficult these subjects are. And they know that they just can't focus in class as well as they could before pandemic because of the low concentration span, because they're so used to being on devices now, on phones, watching television, that they can't sit down, can't keep still for a couple of seconds or minutes just to listen to someone talking to them in front of the classroom. That is why, as teachers, we need to be more creative, give them short tasks so they can absorb what they're listening to, and then answer questions, make lessons more interactive, more fun, have more quizzes and quizzes and things like that, just to make it more interesting. And so therefore that kind of helps eliminate some of those problems, but it's a long haul. There's a long way to go.
Yeah,
So we just
that's
have to
really
play it by ear.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Jasmine. Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to check in with what you said about phones. Like, do young people bring phones into school and do they put them in a place and then collect them when they go home? How does it work?
In my school, it's a no phone policy. So they're not allowed to even take out their bags. They're in the school bag, but that's where it stays for the whole day. They're not allowed to take it out, otherwise there's serious consequences. In some ways, that is good because using phones means that students are then tempted to go to social media, post irrelevant posts, perhaps even of teachers without asking permission, and this can cause a lot of problems. So that the whole no phone policy is a good idea, because it means they have to then got no choice but to come in a classroom and focus on what they're being taught for the day or for that particular lesson. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you find it? Like having worked in schools where young people have their mobile phones, have access to it, and are using it, you know, just it's
Yeah.
commonplace. What is it like for you being in a school where they don't use their phones? I mean,
It's,
can you?
it's, it's just a refreshing, yeah, it's a refreshing change actually, because that's the biggest distraction in the classroom, using mobile phones.
Yeah,
And to be honest, that whole no phone policy is brilliant. And if parents need to get in touch with them, they just contact the reception, the school
yeah,
reception, and say, "Here's an important message. Can you pass that on to my child?" And that's it. So there's no problems there. And if the child needs to use a phone, they will have to go to the reception and use the school phone and call home or speak to their parents. And to be honest, the phone is the villain of the piece. It's what's been causing a lot of problems anyway in most schools, where kids are going into social media, they get influenced by celebrities, unrealistic goals, and then they start behaving like these so-called role models, and it just leads to problems in the classroom, bullying, harassment, uh, insecurities, depression, then leads to mental health, because these goals are unrealistic. These so-called celebrities that they are aspiring to are not good for them, because they can't be the same as those celebrities, and yet they try use the same language, try and be as cool as those celebrities, same clothes that they try and wear, but they know it's a false dream. It's not going to help them in the long run. So that's
mm,
why I'm glad as well that these kids don't use their phones to go onto social media every second of the lesson, that they
yeah,
are more focused on their work than getting
yeah,
distracted by social media. Yeah,
yeah. And also as
that
well,
is a
Jasmine.
dangerous place right now. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean, and you said that there are consequences if they take out their phones. What are the
Yeah.
consequences?
They end up getting a Saturday detention. So they have to come into
Mm,
school on Saturday and spend
mm,
2 hours with the senior management team in a dark, not dark, but quiet hall, and that's it. So
yeah,
that's a deterrent within itself. So it does
yeah.
work.
And
Yeah.
like, do you know that has there been many young people that have taken advantage of this, or have
There was
been?
actually one
Yeah,
child in my class, not with me, but when my colleague was teaching them, that he decided to get his phone out for whatever reason, and he was sneakily trying to look at it under the table, and my colleague caught him and said, "Right, you know the consequences. Hand your phone over." Boy refused, but eventually did submit his phone, and then was told straight away, "You know the consequences. You now got a set day detention. I'm going to have to let your parents know, and that's it. End of." So he's
mm,
learnt his lesson, and he doesn't take his phone out anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, all it takes is just one individual to have a punishment like that, and that's it. It will send out a message to the other students that they can't do that, not
yeah,
allowed to take out their phones, and they're not
yeah.
supposed to. Yeah,
And did he get his phone back when he came to the detention? Did he get
yeah,
it?
he
Yeah,
did. He
great.
did. Yeah,
Okay,
he
that's
did get
really,
back. Yeah,
yeah,
and his parents were also told as well of the punishment, and how they need to reinforce that at home to encourage him not to take it out when he's in school, or
yeah,
not to give his phone at all. But it's
mm,
hard for children, because it's like an outlet for them. They kind of connect with other friends on their phones, social media. They can see what's going on in the outside world, but it's not always great, because there are pressures on there and things that they watch that make them become very insecure, and they
mm,
bring those insecurities to school, and then they get bullied and harassed and withdrawn, and it affects their mental health as well. So there's a lot of pressure, social media, and that's why it's better kids don't use them in the school environment. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And Justin, what have you noticed with our children? Because at first I was kind of like summarizing how things were before the pandemic, and how have you felt the increase? Have what kind of things have you seen and experienced that
Yeah, I just feel somehow kids' manners and just politeness and courtesy has gone out the window since the pandemic. They're more kind of behaving like ruffians now, like hooligans. They don't say polite, they don't say please or thank you, good morning. Just general manners is lacking, I've
Mm,
noticed. Yeah, it's like they've got into bad habits as well, of being at home during that pandemic time. So that's what I've noticed as well. And again, very short concentration span. They can't sit still for more than 10 minutes before they start getting agitated or bored or fidgeting or whatever. Yeah. So
That's
it's very
really
hard for teachers
interesting.
then to keep their
Yeah.
concentration going. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jasmine, I remember when I used to teach, and and boys and girls would be taught in different ways, and that's how I would organize my lessons for boys. Have 10-minute lesson
Yeah.
sessions inside the lesson. Are you
Yeah.
telling me now that it's not just boys that need
Not
to be
just boys. Yeah.
that girls are
Girls
now
as well.
that we would be able to give them open-ended tasks before, and
Yeah.
it'll be nice and relaxed, that they need this rigor now to help them
Yes.
focus.
Yeah.
Good
To get them back into
grief.
routine. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Good grief. That
That's why
sounds good. Yeah.
yeah. This is why I keep the tasks very short and lots of questions like quizzes at the end and mini whiteboards. And they enjoy using mini whiteboards for
Mhm.
their answers. Like, what this question? Get your boards out, pens out, 3, 2, 1, and then they show their boards, and it's great. It keeps them engaged as well. So you have to break down a task, keep them short, not for too long. Don't talk to them. Talk and talk doesn't work anymore. You just
Mhm.
got to really keep it very like task based, short and sweet, and just check progress. And I love using mini whiteboards for quizzes, for true false activities, all sorts. So it's
Yeah.
good fun. And you
Wow.
have to establish that routine as well and tell
Mhm.
them what your expectations are. So that's
Yeah.
all in place, then students will follow suit and get back into the rigor of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So does that mean that, whatever, however the young people are now because of the pandemic, just by being that way, making sure that the lessons are quite
Yeah.
rigorous in their planning,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can influence their behavior and have them
Yeah.
kind of or transform
Yeah.
really by being
Yeah.
consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also making sure that the lesson relates to life, that there's something they can relate to, make it interesting, show them like I did a lesson on radioactivity. So we were talking about Chernobyl, we're talking about Hiroshima, Oppenheimer film, talked about the atomic bomb. So they and a lot of them had seen the film as well. So they could totally relate to what I was saying. Like, wow, miss, this is how it all started. I said, yes. And they instantly engaged, and just showing them another scenario where a Russian spy had his drink spiked and he died of radiation sickness. And again, I told them it's very, very quick, this process. He was given it on the 1st of November, he died like late November, so it wasn't very long, see? So
Mhm.
again, they found that fascinating, like, oh, wow, that could happen to us. I said, yeah, because you can't see, you can't smell it. So it's interesting. So make it as realistic as possible, related
Mhm.
to life, the life examples, and this is how I engage them. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, yeah,
Wow. And I know there's not much that you can do because you're more about achievement and raising the standards of teachers
yeah.
and their own teaching. But I just wondered whether you noticed and what could be done about school refusal, for example, because it looks like school refusal. There's more school refusers
There's
now
more.
since the pandemic than before. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you manage that as a lead practitioner? What kind of advice do you give to your teachers, or what do you tell the school to? Is there anything?
we the school has brought in some mentors or people that actually liaise with the parents, speak to the children, coax them in slowly, get them to come in like for a day, maybe do 1 or 2 lessons to show them actually it's not so bad before, just to see how they cope, and just give them like a smaller timetable, a reduced timetable, to ease them
Mhm,
in slowly, and just give them that reassurance that that teachers are not there to catch them out. They can work at their own pace. If they don't want to attend lesson, that's absolutely fine. This is what the kids are doing now. They attend a few subjects that they enjoy, and that's how we're getting them back into school again.
mhm.
And maybe they leave early as well, half day. They go
Yeah.
they go home. So that's the way to do it. Just slowly coax them in. And
Mhm.
then once they get used to the routine, the environment again, their friends, the teachers, then they can obviously extend that timetable and make it normal timetable. But it takes time. It's not something that can happen overnight. They
Yeah.
got to build that trust as well. And some of these kids have had a very tough time. I have a non-refuser in my tutor group. And it's only just recently I've seen her back in school. So I need to always speak to her like one-to-one. How are you doing? Are you okay? how's your day going? What lessons have you got today? And she really appreciates that, and I can see it. Her face just lights up when I speak to her, and I think that's what we need to do as teachers and as
Mhm.
form tutors, engage with them just to check in on them, see they're okay. So I think it's a long haul, it's a long process, but with time, it should hopefully get those kids back into school with a
Yeah.
proper support and nurturing, and
Mm.
hopefully that will get in place. But also liaising with parents and getting their support as well to get the child back into school. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how are the parents usually? I mean, like I would imagine that they'd be compliant to, doing
yeah,
whatever needed and wanted to
yeah,
get moving.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them are very supportive, and that's all they want. They want to get their child back in school, help them get their decent education, their qualifications under their belts. And some of these non-refusers are actually at key stage 4, so it's quite worrying that it's at this stage now that they're refusing to come to school, and it's only because of the pressure of exams and grades that's affecting their confidence. So it is a long haul, but we'll
Mhm.
hopefully get there with time. And we have some new mentors in place. So these people mentor them, counsel them, take them out of lessons, talk to them, and support them where they can. Yeah.
Mm.
So hopefully it will bring some changes in the future. Yeah. So
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
And from what you've seen, is there anything that because I know that, I mean, you're very experienced and you've seen what's going on in some
Yeah.
schools. Is there anything that you can see is missing, perhaps something that, um, would really make a difference, from the experience that you've had, like being in the chalk face?
Yeah. Again, I think it's just sitting down with these children, telling them that we're there to support them. It's I know we know it's a scary place to be in, but it's better to be in school where they have engagements, they have friends, activities they can do to keep their mind occupied, rather than sitting at home watching television all day. And yeah, just that communication is important. Just to reassure them that we're here for them. We want to see them succeed, and it may take a long time, but it's worth a go, and not to just give in or give up and say, right, I don't want to go to school. That's it. End of.
Mhm.
Just nurture them, support them slowly but surely, and hopefully that will get them back into school where they should be. Yeah.
Yeah. And what if they don't come back into school? I mean, like, I don't know what the figures are of your people.
Yeah. Then I'm not sure what the senior management would do about that. The head
Mhm.
teacher will then have to decide if they want this child still to come to school, or maybe provide some provisions at home, some home learning, maybe school or homeschooling, sorry,
Mm.
or make them go to like a hub or something. I think that's what they do with some of these children.
Yeah.
Send them to smaller groups or clubs or classes to help them get their core subjects at least under their belts. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's what happens because they no longer have proofs anymore. So I think it's done in different ways. Yeah,
Yeah. 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 So it's quite different now. And
yeah.
like, yeah, and I wanted to ask as well about, and what do you think about the kind of like mental health provision in PSHE, or do you have PSC at your school? Is it personal science?
They can now call that citizenship,
Hmm.
and it's not delivered by all teachers now. They
Hmm.
have specific teachers to deliver citizenship. So I think it's people that teach psychology or RE. They will have that on their timetable to deliver those lessons, and that's something that they will have in place. Mental health and well-being. So there's a lot more of that now going on, and these
Hmm.
teachers are also able to check on these students to see if they're okay, and liaise with their other subject teachers and form tutor just to give them a heads up of how the child's doing. Yeah, this is where
Hmm.
that subject is very helpful. Citizenship, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do the teachers don't teach that anymore?
No. So
Wow.
in my school, it's been taken away from the subject teacher now, not to deliver citizenship. They have just specific people that are low on their timetables, of a small timetable, to take that on board. And some of
Yeah.
the senior leaders are also doing it now as well. My
Mm.
head teacher is actually teaching citizenship, so She can be aware of what's going on in the classroom, some of the issues that these students are facing, the insecurities, the problems that they're occurring coming to school. So yeah, so that's good that she's involved in citizenship course. So I'm glad
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see the bigger
And then
picture. Yeah.
is it something that's going on in your school, or has it been going on or is it going now on in many schools? Like,
I think this is happening in many schools. Yeah,
where
where it's
it's not the school teacher, and it's not the teacher that's teaching, it's a
yeah
person that's designated.
designated to that. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's mainly the humanity teachers
yeah,
or those that are teaching RE or psychology that they will have that embedded into their timetable to deliver that course. Yeah.
mm,
So it's not
yeah,
something that's put upon all teachers anymore, like the core subjects as well. We're so bogged down with our teaching. There's no way we have that capacity to even teach citizenship. It's just not it's not going to happen on a practical
mhm,
level. So that's why
yeah,
there are specific teachers that deliver that course. Yeah.
yeah. And what about, finally, I just want to know about so young people that want to have some immediate intervention or support, or someone to speak with about something that they're dealing with. Is that kind of like what's that like? Is it easy for young people to be able to do that?
Yes, in my school they have communities or house communities and house leaders. So if there is a problem, that particular student can go to their house leader first to speak to them about any problems, or of course the form tutors. They can speak to us as well if they have an issue, so we can support them and then put them in the right direction, point them in the right direction if there is a specific issue that we can't help them with, or guide them into talking to so and so of this particular person that will be able to give them some solutions and support. Yeah, so there are
Mm.
things in place, and then obviously then the next stage would be mentoring with the teachers that are allocated for mentoring as mentors. So
Mhm.
depending on how many students they have at a time, they will then be consulted and they will then take on board that particular child's case and just help them where they can. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, listen, thank you for this, Jasmine. And I just wanted to ask one more time about, like, with you and your experience, is there anything that you can see that, knowing how youth mental health and the profile seems to have changed since the pandemic, is there
Yeah.
anything else that you see could really impact them and make a difference, and stopping them from kind of like going, having a breakdown later on?
Yeah. I think again, not using phones in school, the no phone policy is a good idea. I
Mm,
just feel that the social media at the moment is, like I said, is the villain of the piece. It's just causing so many insecurities in children. They have unrealistic goals that these kids are aspiring to these celebrities, and they pick up languages and bad habits, and then they think that's cool, that's the way to go, that's the way to live, and it's not. And then it leads to all sorts of things. Body conscious, a lot of the teenagers as well are very body conscious. They're looking at these celebrities who are always going on these diets, trying to look super skinny, and it's not good. It's not sending out the right message to these young girls. So they're very impressionable. That is why phone policy is so important. Schools don't allow students to bring phones to school because it's bad news. It's not good for them at all. Yeah.
that's really interesting. And then would you actually say, because like, is this the first school that you've been to where there's been a no phone policy? And then is the difference from your perspective from
Yeah.
this school and the others? Do you really think that those other ones would be able to have turned things around for their achievement, for their academic,
Yeah.
for their well-being?
I Yeah, at my last school, they didn't put they had no rules about mobile phones, so kids would take them out in classrooms. They wouldn't be focused on their work. They were too busy then going onto social media, even recording people without their consent and posting it on social media, and that would lead to bullying, harassment. So the school teachers had to speak up and say, actually, this is not working. We need to put a ban on phones. Please, please, bring out a new policy to ban phones, and this is exactly what had to happen. SLT then came out with a rule. On show has to go. So they were then very strict and said no phones allowed. Parents were then on board and they were told your child is here to learn. Having a phone out is not going to help them for their learning, and that made them like get distracted as well. So to get rid of the phone, it just made them more focused in class. There was no bullying then after that. People weren't recording each other, posting online or social media. So that all went out the window. And again, there were serious consequences as well. If a child was seen with the phone, immediately confiscated, and they wouldn't get it back till a couple of days later. So that sent a strong message, and that's actually worked. So I'm glad that the old school got that policy out, because they should have done it a long time ago. There were also teachers that were also being recorded without their consent and being posted on social media. So it was affecting teachers as well, their mental health too, with phones, especially students, because you just don't know what they're capable of in the classroom or what they're doing. And you may say to them, yes, it's a research task, but they could be doing something else on their phones. And next thing you know, there's a post on social media with a teacher, and this caused a lot of problems, big problems. This is why the school had to come down hard on these students and say, right, that's enough. No phones. You're not allowed. That's the consequences. Your phone will be confiscated, and that's it. So in some ways, it's good that students don't use their phones in school, because it just causes unnecessary problems, insecurities, bullying, harassment, all sorts. And that can lead to a slippery slope and mental health issues too.
Yeah.
Particularly with teenagers. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Jasmine, thank you for coming today. I know it's the first day of your holidays. So,
Yes.
so thank you for jumping in without even much rest. It's just been
Yeah.
really good to
Pleasure.
hear, from you, like being being there at the chalk face,
Yeah.
training teachers and, things from your perspective and the different schools that you've been in, to be able to verify, in fact, the
Yeah.
kind of things that I've been saying about the danger of mobile phones and the impact on
Absolutely.
emotional intelligence and
Yeah.
teaching and learning. And
Yeah.
so thank you. And I'm hoping that you can come back again and
Yes, definitely.
teach us some
I love
more.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Jasmine. So today we've been speaking with Jasmine, who is a lead practitioner for science in a school in London. And if you've got any questions, please do inbox me, and we'll see you next week on the next video. And then Jasmine's going to come back hopefully next term sometime, so she can brief us some more about the strategies she uses for the young people in her school. So we'll have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.